Hi everybody, this is Megan Garza with Megan Garza Wellness. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, health coach, and yoga instructor, and you're listening to the Restoring Balance podcast. More women than ever are now dealing with digestive, hormonal, and skin issues and are not finding satisfactory answers or results. On this show, I teach you how to implement holistic lifestyle, dietary, and mindset strategies to help you get smooth digestion and balanced hormones to reclaim your health, feel confident about your decisions, and to finally live life on your terms. Hello everybody, welcome back. This is episode 14, and the title of today's episode is Yoga and Digestion Benefits. So before we get into today's episode, if you're a fan of the show, this is just a reminder of how you can support the podcast by giving it a 5-star rating on Spotify podcast, which helps the algorithm get my show to other listeners who would benefit from it just like you. Without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to talk all about abnormal and normal bowel habits, the number one factor and driver for chronic health conditions, especially digestive problems, how yoga helps with digestion, and also a little bit about the nervous system, because how can you talk about yoga without talking about the nervous system, and then just general digestion tips. Statistics show that around 40% of Americans deal with digestive issues. However, I think that this number is actually significantly higher than this, maybe even closer to 95% of Americans. And the reason why I say this is because there are probably a lot of unreported cases of digestive disorders. And this could be due to a variety of factors. So maybe someone is too embarrassed to go to the doctor to talk about this thing, or they think that what they're dealing with is normal because it's just how it's always been for them, or they just don't understand what normal versus abnormal bowel habits look like. Or maybe they're just not aware of the fact that there are other health conditions that are related to gut health. So for example, skin problems like acne, eczema, psoriasis, and so on are deeply connected to gut health. So that is exactly why I think there are so many people that are suffering with digestive disorders, and it's significantly higher than the 40% that are reported. So what are abnormal bowel habits? So abnormal bowel habits can include things from runny stool to loose stool. If you have urgency with your bowels, so if you feel like you can't hold it and you need to go right then and there. Also, if you're constipated, so meaning that you're pooping less than once a day. So if you're going to the bathroom every other day or every once a week, that is severe constipation, and that does classify as an abnormal bowel habit. If you have really smelly gas, or if you're bloating or having excessive burping after eating, also things like floating stool or undigested food in stool, and also really foul smelling stools. So of course, stool is not going to smell like roses and sunshine, but if it's really foul smelling and you feel like it is just too much, then there could be something else that is going on in your digestive system that needs some attention. So what do normal bowel habits look like? That would be pooping 1 to 3 times a day. The stools have a sausage shape form to them. They sink to the bottom of the toilet, and they're dark brown in color, and you feel satisfied after a bowel movement. So if none of those things are meeting up with how your stools look like and how you feel after you go to the bathroom, then you could potentially classify as having abnormal stools and abnormal bowels. And this is why I feel like so many people probably do not report their digestive problems, because one, I'm sure a lot of doctors don't ask about this in such specific detail, and two, people are embarrassed, and lastly, people just don't know. And this is not common knowledge because of how taboo it is to talk about digestive problems and just poop and gas and bloating. And it's like there's so much shame associated with this stuff, even though it is so important. And there's so many factors that can come into play with digestion, and the fact that digestion really does impact your overall health. So I think we should really reconsider how we look at our bowel habits and also just eliminating this taboo. And I'm not saying like go talk about this stuff with your friends and share it with the world, but in a sense of a clinical setting, like you absolutely should be talking about this stuff with your doctor. And if your doctor is not asking you about this, go find a new doctor, because a doctor who does not care about your digestive and internal health is probably not the right one for you, because of the fact of how many other symptoms and problems are related to digestive disorders. So now the number one driver of digestive problems and all other chronic illnesses are really driven by stress. Stress is such a huge factor for why so many health problems are occurring, because of the impact that stress has on the nervous system. And this is why you can spend tens of thousands of dollars and still be sick if there is stress or emotional baggage or trauma that is stuck in your nervous system. And this is especially relevant for childhood trauma, because if you are dealing with stuff that has been unresolved and it is just sitting in your nervous system, you are not going to heal. Your digestive system is going to continue to have all of these problems, and you're going to be compromised with your overall health and well-being. And this is because the parasympathetic is responsible for the entire digestive process, because digestion really does start in the brain. It starts with the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. It is opposite from fight or flight. It is the state that we need to be in to properly digest our food. So the brain signals to your body and your mouth to release saliva. It tells your stomach to release stomach acid, and then it tells your pancreas to release digestive enzymes. It tells your liver to release bile, and then your gallbladder to contract to release that bile into the small intestine. And it also helps with peristalsis, which is basically gut motility. If your body is in constant stress, it is not going to be prioritizing your digestion, because it is in a sympathetic state. That is the fight or flight. So if you're focusing on running from the tiger instead of digesting, your body's going to be focused on running from that tiger, and it is not going to care about digesting that meal, because that is not important to your body in that moment. So that could include things like work emails. Maybe you're stuck in traffic, or you're having long hours with your children, or lack of sleep, even things like fasting or cold plunging. So this is why it's so important to really improve your digestion and to really focus on switching into that parasympathetic state, because if you're constantly in fight or flight, you're not going to see healing. You're not going to see results, and your body is going to continue to stay in a state of chronic hypervigilance. Because if your body does not know that it is safe, digestion is going to come last. It's not going to be the number one thing that your body is going to be focusing on. Instead, your body's going to be focusing on fight or flight and running from that tiger, or replying to that work email for your angry boss. And this is where yoga can really come in handy and prove to have so many benefits, because the benefits of yoga have been studied, and there are a lot of extensive research studies based on yoga and how it impacts the body. So it can improve one's mindfulness and gratitude. Yoga helps you be present in the moment. It'll also help stimulate vagus nerve activity, and I'm going to speak more on that in just a moment. It can also increase the quality of life. It's been used as therapy for IBS and constipation, which I think is such a fantastic modality to include in your overall therapeutic healing protocol. Also, it can help with the stress response and helps with anxiety and depression, which is so fantastic considering how many Americans are on antidepressants and probably don't need to be. It can also help with insomnia, and there's so many more things that yoga is beneficial for, but that's just the things that I've come up with right now. There's also studies on all of this. As I said, I will link the studies that I'm referring to in the show notes. And there's a big misconception in the Western world when it comes to yoga that it's just about postures and breathing, and that's really just the surface level of it. And it is all about a mind-body fitness practice. And truly, there are 4 principles that make up the teachings and practices of yoga. So the first principle is that the body is a holistic entity that has many connected dimensions, and health or illness in one part will affect the other. So it goes to show you that our body is not just the cardiovascular system over here and the digestive system over there and the nervous system over here. And it's like in the world of Western medicine, we kind of just look at things as separate rather than realizing how interconnected the entire body is. And the second principle is that every person is unique, as are their needs, and their individuality must be taken into consideration with their practice. And this is something that is really important to remember when you are practicing, because there are many different types of yoga, there's many types of breathing techniques, and this is why when you first take a yoga class, if you've never been, and say that you don't click with the type of yoga that you're taking or the instructor that's teaching, to keep that in mind, because the fact that there are so many different types of yoga, like there's Hatha yoga, yin yoga, Iyengar yoga, and so many more. And if you don't click with a specific type of yoga initially, that is totally fine. Some people like group classes. Some people just like to practice on their own. Once they learn more about it, they get more skilled at it. And don't get me wrong, going to a yoga class is not a bad thing. I am a yoga instructor myself, but however, I do acknowledge that sometimes people prefer to practice on their own, and that is totally okay. Not everyone's going to vibe with a group class. Not everyone's going to vibe with a one-on-one lesson, and that's totally fine because we are all unique, and that is the second principle that makes up yoga. The third principle is yoga is self-empowering, and the student is his or her own healer, and healing does come from within. So this is something that is absolutely incredible to me. It absolutely blows my mind, because this is also a principle that I largely focus on in my nutritional therapy practice, because while there are many tools and different things that we utilize to help our clients get from point A to point B and to reach their goals, it is largely up to the individual to either follow that protocol and also mentally be in that space to want to heal. And speaking of the being in the right headspace to want to heal, that's kind of what the fourth principle touches on, is that mindset is critical to healing. So what I mentioned earlier about how you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars and not be seeing results if you are still holding on to emotional baggage or doubt or trauma, because it really is largely up to us to be able to heal. And I'm not saying that there are not aggressive cancers or chronic illnesses that really can just take a person down and really make them sick, and there are things that are outside of our control. But it is empowering to know that mindset is critical to be able to heal our bodies. And then also knowing that yoga is more than just the asanas, which is postures. So the Yoga Sutras, which has been written by Patanjali, outlines the path to awareness, and it is called Ashtanga, or 8 limbs. So physical postures and breathing is what ultimately will prepare the mind and body for spiritual development. So the 8 limbs are the asanas, the postures, the pranayama, which is mindful breathing, and then you have pratyahara, which is where you turn inward, and then you have dharana, which is concentration, and then you have dhyana, which is meditation, and then samadhi, which is pure bliss, and then you have the personal and social ethics, which are the yamas and niyamas, which basically go into ethical principles or considerations, which is very fascinating. And if you want to know more, definitely do some research on the yamas and niyamas, because they really are kind of a guide for how people live their life who are on the path to spiritual enlightenment, and it kind of acts as a set of principles to live by. So as you can see, yoga really is more than just stretching, because it really shifts the mindset to positive and non-judgmental awareness. So stress reduction is a major benefit for yoga, but there is more than just stretching and breathing, which is so incredible. And if you are interested, definitely go to a yoga teacher training. Make sure you do your research on them because they are really not all created equally. There's not a whole lot of regulations on yoga teacher trainings, but just do your research. And if you're interested, you'll definitely find one that clicks for you. So stress reduction is absolutely a major benefit of yoga. And this is a huge win for digestion. So some of the postures that can be so incredible for helping with digestion is cat-cow pose. So this helps compress and lengthen the intestines and just kind of move things through a little bit as well. Then you have extended puppy pose. This one is fantastic for relieving any cramps or even passing gas. Same with knees, chest, chin, because it stretches the intestines and passes the gas. So if you alternate between like puppy pose and knees, chest, chin, you can kind of massage the intestines following the ascending colon to the transverse colon to the descending colon. So basically you would start by placing your fingertips next to the top of your right hip, and then you would work your way up until you reach kind of towards your ribs, and then you would walk your fingers all the way to the left and then all the way back down. So this is going to be a helpful little massage technique even if you're just laying down. You can look up the anatomy of the colon online so that way you can get a better picture of what I'm talking about, especially if you're a visual person. I know it can be kind of confusing to hear all these terminologies and descriptions verbally. Then you have downward facing dog. So this is where you'll just do some deep belly breaths. You'll pull the navel inward and do about 5 to 10 breaths here. And this can kind of strengthen the abdominal muscles and also just squeeze everything and then relax. And then you have the supine spinal twist. So you would do this on both sides where you lay down and then just let your knees fall over to the left and then to the right. And it just stimulates the organs overall and is just very relaxing to the body. And then lastly, you have corpse pose or savasana, which is where you lie down flat and you take deep breaths. So this is just going to ultimately help relax the body. You're not doing any twisting here. You're not doing any movement. So this is all just about turning inward and just allowing your body to relax. And another wonderful benefit about yoga, as I mentioned earlier, that I would elaborate more on is the vagus nerve. So it is very stimulating to the vagus nerve, which is the largest cranial nerve that is responsible for things like digestion, heart rate, and respiratory rate. And the nervous system is very stimulated. The parasympathetic nervous system is stimulated during yoga, especially if you're doing things like yin yoga or like a slow flow rather than like a really fast-paced yoga or even hot yoga, because that's going to put your body into more of a sympathetic state. Even though there is a lot of breath work that's going on there, it's still more of an active type of yoga. So things like humming, oming loudly, deep belly breathing, meditation, prayer, and gratitude. These are going to help you feel more regulated and grounded, and all of these can be incorporated into a yoga practice very easily. Yoga is an incredible tool to add to your toolbox, especially if it's something that you've been interested in for a while. Definitely check it out. If you don't want to go to a class, look up videos on YouTube because there are so many of them, and I can guarantee you're going to find someone who's going to vibe with you and you are just going to fall in love with it if it's something that you've been looking for a while. Or if you want someone more hands-on, you can go to a class. Sometimes they'll do hand-on assist. If you would like them to, you can ask them ahead of time. And yoga is just an amazing tool to add to your toolbox. It is a way of life for some people, and there are a lot of principles, ethical and moral. So having some kind of practice, either prayer, meditation, yoga, or some combination of them, is going to prove to have so many benefits on your digestion, especially if you are practicing regularly. So if you have trouble finding purpose throughout the day or feeling stressed throughout the day, maybe you could get up 15 minutes earlier and go to your mat and just do some yoga. Or if you have problems with pain at night or insomnia, hop on the mat and just do some stretching and breathing and turning inward and just reflecting on your thoughts and how your day was. Because if you are just jumping into bed with insomnia and you're not doing anything and you just played on your phone for the past hour, like, you're probably not going to be able to get a good night's sleep. So incorporating yoga is something that is very beneficial. I've seen so many benefits myself. I've heard from so many other women telling me how much that they wish that they did yoga earlier because of how beneficial it is to them and how much it's changed their life. And even my husband, after his cancer surgery, he lost the ability to walk and he was very depressed and down on his luck. And I just coaxed him into just come and stretch with me, come do yoga with me. And slowly but surely, he regained his ability to do these things. And it was just so inspiring to see him be able to move forward and to continue to heal and overcome some of these things. And with all that being said, just remember that yoga is not going to solve all of your digestive issues if you live a bad lifestyle and have bad eating habits. Which is why it is so important to be able to have a healthy lifestyle and to eat nutrient-dense whole foods and to have a proper lifestyle. And if you're not sure what I mean by a proper lifestyle, you can check out my last podcast, episode 13, where I talk all about it. And there's so many different things that are really fascinating about lifestyle and the things that we think are healthy versus the things that we think are not. So check that out if you don't exactly know what direction to go. Because it really is about balance. And if we are not balancing our lifestyles and our routines and our diet, then it's not just like one thing is going to be a cure-all. So it's not just like, I'm going to drink this green juice and I'm going to feel great, or I'm going to do this cold plunge and all my health problems are just going to go away, or I'm going to do yoga for an hour a day and everything's going to be solved and fixed, because that's not the reality of how the human body works. There are so many other things that we need to do to nutritionally and emotionally and mentally support us, mind, body, and spirit. As far as general digestion tips, the biggest thing that you can do is to slow down, chew your food, and take deep breaths. So this is going to help your body produce stomach acid, allow the bile to be released when it needs to be released, the salivary enzymes to be released to masticate your food and to coat the food, and also just help your body get parasympathetic. So making sure that you're chewing your food. Do not eat your food in a distracted state. So try to refrain from eating while you're driving or watching TV, or especially listening to something stressful or even fighting at the dinner table. It is something that you should absolutely avoid if you can, because you're trying to digest your food and you don't want to be fighting with someone. Some people find praying or even just saying some gratitude before mealtimes can be really beneficial for just improving awareness of where the food came from, how grateful you are, and just being present in the moment to allow your body to rest and digest. And that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about. So just remember to take it step by step and to keep learning on your wonderful journey of wellness. Well, that's all the time that we have for. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Today we talked about bowel habits, the link between stress and digestive dysfunction, yoga and the nervous system, and just overall general digestion tips. You can expect new episodes every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a quick reminder again of how you can support the podcast and stay in the loop. Just make sure that you sign up for my email list so you can be notified every time I post a new podcast episode, make any new announcements about my services and how you can work with me, and also receive weekly relevant tips for digestion and hormones so you can optimize your health. My email list is the first to be notified about all these things. You can find the link to sign up for my emails in the show notes, or head to my website at megangarzawellness.com and you can wait for the pop-up or sign up under the freebies tab. Again, I just want to thank you for listening to this week's topic. Take care, everyone, and until next time.